Which microphone's for you or which is for me?
She'd like to talk into the mic as much as you can.
Welcome to this forum for State Representative District 27 election. Today is June 18th, 2014. This forum will be featuring the candidates who have filed for State Representative 27th District. There are 2 Republicans and 5 Democrats on the August 5th primary ballot. This district includes Berkeley, Huntington Woods, Oak Park, Pleasant Ridge, Hazel Park, and Ferndale. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am Tara Moon, a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, national, nonpartisan political organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our community strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one that has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning how you can make a similar impact, please, I would encourage you to visit our website to look for our membership information. You can also visit our website to find out more about the issues we talk about tonight and more information about our candidates. Our website is at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum. Please take this time to turn off and silence all cell phones. We ask that the candidates answer the question with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. The candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness by Jerry Burden and John McGarry, both League members. Paige Judy Bateman will be circulating throughout the audience. She'll have paper and pencils for you to write down your questions. At any time, if you think of a question, raise your hand and Judy will come to you with a piece of paper. When you're done with writing down your question, just raise it in the air and Judy will come and get it to John. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order, and closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse alphabetical order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless I decide to extend it. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. The Democratic candidates are, let me do that again. The Republican candidates are Michael Ryan and Mark Manier. Mr. Manier is not here tonight. The Democratic candidates are Andrew Sissel, Joe McHugh, Rudy Serra, Kelly Williams, and Robert Wittenberg. Again, Mark Manier is a Republican candidate on the ballot, but he is not here tonight. We will begin the 1 minute opening statements with Michael Ryan. Mr. Ryan?
My name is Michael Ryan. I'm a 54-year-old dentist who's married to Eileen Jabori Ryan with 4 kids. I'm running for state representative because Michigan needs a better version of the Affordable Care Act. The uninsured need to be covered automatically for essential care, for essential medical care. How would that, what constitutes essential medical care, be decided so that the program remains affordable? I propose that jury-like one-day panels of a dozen covered people should decide specific questions that the insurance company would administrators would take over. How would this plan be funded? I think a payroll tax on employers and employees of those needing this coverage, along with an increased sales tax, could keep the plan solvent. Why not stick with the current federal plan? We need to solve the outside costs and uneven results of our health coverage, and the Washington plan is too complicated to get good results. If we don't fix our health care, we'll never have the money to improve education, reduce poverty, or fix our roads. If you have the will to do this, there definitely is a way to move our state forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Andrew Sissel.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Pretty good. All right. Well, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Andrew Robert Sissel. I'm 26 years old. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance from the University of Michigan Dearborn. I was born and raised here in Ferndale. Fun fact, I'm 26. I'm by far the youngest person in this race. However, I've lived in the district longer than all of them. Besides that, I've been working really hard lately. I've actually been changing laws, and I'm not elected yet. Or not changing laws, but giving you all the option to change the laws. We've been working really hard on ballot initiatives. We successfully got one done in Ferndale to decriminalize marijuana for adults, of course. Keywords for adults. And now we've been working really hard in Berkeley. We also got Hazel Park and Oak Parks on the ballot as well. If there's anything I can really say, it's that I am young. I'm very energetic. I don't have the experience as some people that I'm running against do, but the funny thing about experience is you don't have it unless you have a job, but you can't get a job unless you have experience. Give me a chance, and I promise I'll do more than you could even imagine. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Joe McHugh.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women's Voters for hosting this night and to all of you for attending. Just a quick show of hands. Who watches the evening news? We have a few people. And we see it every night. Our roads are crumbling. Our schools are closing. Blight and crime is increasing. And we have BP to thank for a $1 billion oil spill in Lake Michigan. Our pensions are insolvent, and yet we still lack social equity, marriage equality, and women's health. Now, these aren't separate issues. Rather, it's just one problem in Lansing, and that problem is leadership. As a Marine officer, I lead by example. I let my deeds do the talking. And tonight, I look forward to sharing with you key points of my Renew Michigan blueprint, which will create thousands of clean, green jobs for Michigan. I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Rudy Serra.
My name is Rudy Serra. I have a proven record of hard work and effective leadership to bring good jobs to the community, to protect the environment, to promote the interests of women, children, and working people. I'm a former member of the Ferndale Board of Education, a former member of the Oakland County Commission, and a former judge on the third busiest court in the country. I'm running for state representative because I've seen a lot of what can happen when inexperienced people who don't know the law are passing laws. I believe that we need experience in Lansing. I believe that we need people who know the law, people who know government. I served as the chairman of the Executive Clemency Council under Governor Granholm. I've been endorsed by both former governors, Granholm and Blanchard, and I would be honored to be your state representative and put my experience to work for you, solving the problems we face in Lansing.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Ms. Kelly Williams.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Williams. I am excited to be here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting me. I am committed to strengthening public education, improving public transit, as well as being a voice for both women and workers. I am a labor leader. I wake up every day working for working people. I'm a committed, dedicated, and resourceful leader, and I look forward to serving you in Lansing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Robert Wittenberg.
Good evening. My name is Robert Wittenberg, and I was born and raised here in the district. Graduated from Berkeley High School, and my mother is a third-grade teacher over in Warren Fitzgerald. Excuse me, my father was on the school board, obviously graduating from Berkeley High School. I know the value of public education. Public education is my #1 priority. Also with our cities, over the last 10 years, $6 billion has been diverted away from our municipalities. That's money for our crumbling roads. I'm assuming you've all seen how bad the local roads are. It's money for our roads, for our police and fire, public safety, essential services, things like that. Last issue is our seniors. I want to protect our seniors. I am strongly against the pension tax on our seniors. I want our seniors to be able to retire with dignity and security, financial security. And I look forward to answering your questions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Candidates, I want to point out our timer in the front row here, Jerry Burden. He's holding up signs at 30 and 15 seconds, and a stop sign when you're done. Please adhere to that. We'll let you go on a few seconds longer if you're in the middle of a thought and he holds a stop sign up, but after that we'll cut you off. And remember to direct your questions or your answers to the audience, not to me. I'm not a voter in this district. Okay, so we'll get started with our first question, and we're going to start with Mr. Ryan. What is your position on the legalization of marijuana, and what are you currently doing to promote this issue? Mr. Ryan.
I think we ought to watch what's happening in Colorado. They've legalized pretty much any use of marijuana. Now, it may be that legalizing it may reduce some of the problems of enforcement, but I still want to see if the social problems of possibly intoxicated operation of motor vehicles, and we don't have a good test for that. So I'd be very cautious with any change in the law with that. I don't mind reducing the penalties, but I think some of our other ones are other candidates here are talking about, because it is not as serious of drug use as, say, cocaine or methamphetamine.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel.
Yeah, well, marijuana is absolutely a medicine, for one. So to legalize it medically, I think most people for sure agree with that. I vouch to legalize it altogether. The thing is, if you think about it, as taxpayers, we're spending money right now on the problem. We're spending money on the jails, the police, the magistrates, the judges, the administration. There's a lot of cost, the judges. The thing is, though, if we legalized it, we could tax it. So we're saving money, and then we're making money as well. So it's actually a +2. The other thing is you got to think about social repercussions. Obviously, the decriminalization things I'm doing are for adults. Marijuana, just like alcohol and tobacco, should be for adults only. I think everybody agrees on that. And the other issue is, as a social repercussion, jailing people, we got to think, is it really that bad that people should go to jail? And we're talking about small amounts. At least for my petitions, we're talking about small amounts. Large amounts is another conversation. But do we really want to put people in jail, usually minorities and usually young people, for marijuana?
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh.
First, I want to be clear. I am for outright legalization of cannabis, not just marijuana, but also hemp. And as a Marine officer, I don't use marijuana, but I'm not going to tell you whether or not you can or cannot do it. I believe that each individual has that opportunity to make that choice on their own. We already have the rules on the books for alcohol and tobacco, and we should use those rules for marijuana as well. Now, this is a huge opportunity that we have here. We spend $150 million a year on incarceration-related expenses to marijuana. And Colorado has already shown us that they have yielded between $150 and $250 million in tax revenue. That's a $400 million swing, a.k.a. 30% of the road deficit. Significant opportunity. So, I'm not a user, but I do support it based on choice and based on the economic opportunity. And I do thank Andrew for his work with the Safer Mission Coalition as well.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Serra?
As a judge and as chairman of the Executive Clemency Council for the state of Michigan, I really learned that the war on drugs, as we call it, is really a failure. If we take seriously the model of substance abuse, addiction, and alcoholism as diseases, then our focus in the government would be to provide treatment to those who feel that they need treatment. As far as legalization goes, I'm in favor of legalization of marijuana, not by eliminating city ordinances, because I think that creates a great deal of confusion, but on a statewide basis so that it's uniform. It troubles me that it's 9 times more likely for an African American to be busted for marijuana possession than a white person, even in Wayne County with an African American majority. I think the war on drugs needs to be rethought, and I think that we need someone with background in social work and background in government to reformulate that war. I'd like to be one of those people.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Ms. Williams?
Well, I am for the decriminalization of marijuana. What have I done? I signed the petition, and I will vote for it. Of all of the issues, all of the things that I spend time on the front lines picketing and protesting for, marijuana has not been one of them. But like I said, the will of the people will prevail. I think it should be the will of the people. If the people want marijuana to be legalized, it should be.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg.
Yeah, for that one, same kind of idea. I truly believe in decriminalization of marijuana. I think far too much money and far too many resources are spent on policing, especially for minor infractions, and same kind of thing. It's inversely proportional. I mean, it really targets low income and minorities, and I think that money could be spent on treatment and making sure those that have issues can get them addressed. And I'm on the board for the Tri-Community Coalition, which is for Berkeley, Huntington Woods, and Oak Park, and it's for substance abuse and prevention in our schools. And for me, I would never, ever, ever want it to get to our youth. So that's one of the issues with me. So making sure that I'm okay with decriminalization. I'm not there yet for legalization.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. The next question will start with Mr. Sissel. The candidate that works the hardest and raises the most money generally wins local elections. In this vein, how many doors have you knocked on and how much money have you raised? Mr. Sissel.
The candidate that works the hardest will win, or should win. I've been working my tail off. You know, how many doors have I knocked? I don't know. I can tell you how many signatures we've gathered, which means we've probably knocked at least twice to 3 times as many doors, if not 4. We got 1,700 signatures in Oak Park and Hazel Park combined, 600 in Ferndale. Now we're in Berkeley. We already have 500. So amount of doors have I knocked? I don't know. It's definitely going to be in the hundreds, if not more, maybe in the thousands. And that's all seriousness. And when it comes to hard work, the thing is I'm young, and that's the one thing that kind of separates me, but that just means I have that much more energy. And if I'm here, if I'm willing to do what I've already done, obviously I'm not going back. I'm only going to continue to go forward. I think my energy could get used, you know, for the well-being of society. So that's my goal. That's why I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh.
Thanks, Tara. One of the things I learned in the Marine Corps is that it's not always the same rules every single time. What matters is how you use the resources that you have. So what that means is at the local level, it is about knocking on doors. Whoever has the greatest ground game is going to win this game. From Thursday to Sunday, my team knocked on 2,400 doors. 4 days, 2,400 doors. We're just getting started. So, we have raised a team of, starting with volunteers, around 30 volunteers right now, and we're still going. People love to get involved because we present opportunity at the ground level to participate in a game-changing campaign. Individual liberty, equality, opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sarah?
Well, I certainly hope it's true that hard work wins, because I have 30 years of hard work behind me on behalf of the people of this district, including the school district and Southeast Oakland County. I didn't kick off my campaign until December of last year, so I'm somewhat newer to the race. I didn't move back to Ferndale to run for state representative. Nonetheless, I've been endorsed by the 14th Congressional District Democrats. I'm a former officer in the Democratic Party. I'm the only one up here who has ever been elected to any public office. And I think that I can point to those experiences as proof of the hard work that I will do. One can talk about the hard work that they've done, but I think that actions speak louder than words. We're knocking on doors. We're raising money. I'm pleased with the progress we're making. Delighted to have so many of you on board, and I'm committed to continue until victory on the 5th of August.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Ms. Williams?
Well, if my middle name wasn't Nicole, it would be hard work. I've been working since I was 12 years old, and I know the meaning of hard work. I've been knocking doors. I can't give you a number how many doors I've knocked or how much money I've raised. I've raised some money, maybe not as much as some people think I should raise, but the name of the game is reaching voters. I'm a former track and field athlete. I ran the 400-meter dash. I remember running the dash and getting to the middle of the second curve. At that moment, that's when you decide whether or not you're going to quit or you're going to make it through the finish line. I will make it through the finish line, and I plan on getting there first.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg.
As far as the dollars raised, we have raised quite a bit of money, but more importantly, it's the amount of donors that have invested in my campaign. We have over 300 separate individuals that have all donated to the campaign, which I think speaks volumes about the work that we're out there doing. We do have an aggressive field plan in place, and I agree with Andrew. The candidate that works the hardest will be the one that I think will win this election. We do keep track of our numbers. We have an aggressive field plan, like I said. We knocked over 8,000 doors so far. We started in March when there was snow on the ground, and And I have a great team surrounding me, my father who comes out with me. I have a great campaign manager and then some friends that I see here in the audience. And they truly believe in what we're trying to do here, and we're working hard. And so if I haven't seen you on your doorstep yet, I look forward to speaking with you on your doorstep.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan.
I'm in a little bit different position because this district is strongly Democratic. As you can see, the number of people contending for that primary position. I've mainly been self-funded, so I only have, $1,000 or $2. I mainly want to get my literature out there. So I haven't been knocking on every single door. If I see people outside, I don't mind. But none of them really, only one person that really wanted to talk much about any of the issues. But I think one of the things, in addition to work and fundraising, is do we have a new idea that really needs to be brought to the forefront? And sometimes even if you don't win the election itself, bringing a new idea can help change things for the better. And that's my position.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. The next question will start with Mr. McHugh. How would you have voted on the law requiring the buying of additional health insurance, sometimes called rape insurance, to cover abortions?
I'm glad you asked that question. This is an easy one. Obviously, I would have voted against this rape tax. This needs to be repealed. This is a liberty issue. This is an equality issue. And this is something that is extremely important to everybody, really, and to women across the board. So it plays right into the central part of the platform. Again, liberty, equality, and opportunity. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And based on my oath of office, in separation of church and state, women should have comprehensive health insurance. They should not have to worry about whether or not something goes wrong and whether or not that's covered. Now, I want to take a second to talk about experience. It's been mentioned, that experience is extremely important. I also want to mention that in 2002, I ran for state representative, and I too was endorsed by the MEA, the UAW, AFL-CIO, unions across the board. I've got what it takes. I've bound to been there as well, and by serving my country, I will be fighting every step of the way to support women across the board.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sarah?
I would have absolutely voted against that extra insurance. I have a 30-year record that proves that I'm a pro-choice Democrat. I've worked for the interests of working women, of women all over the state of Michigan. I believe that every individual, every competent adult has personal integrity, personal freedom, and the ability to make medical care decisions for themselves as long as they're competent. I don't want the government to be dictating what I do with my body. I would never support government dictating what anyone else does with theirs. In my view, the mentality that tells a person whose moral choice is that abortion is acceptable, that they can't have an abortion, is the same sort of mentality that we see in countries that compel people who don't want to have abortions to have them. That's just inappropriate. It's not the ground for government. In a democracy like we live in, every one of us should always have the integrity to make the decisions about our personal lives and our physical well-being and our medical care that we choose.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Ms. Williams?
That absolutely would have been a no vote. As a woman, I think that the attack on women has to stop. The attack on the choice of individuals for their own lives has to stop. And yes, that would have been a no vote. If there had have been more women at the table, I think that it would have been a different situation.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
Yes, a no vote as well. I am absolutely pro-choice, and I think that is something that should be between a woman and her doctor and her family. I volunteer, excuse me, I keep losing my voice. I volunteer with Planned Parenthood. I know the great work that they're doing, and I think everyone should have access to this. It was just so infuriating to hear about that, and even worse is that a lot of these insurance companies don't even offer the coverage. So even in the case of rape and incest and the health of the mother, they don't have coverage for this. It's just completely wrong, and I would absolutely work to repeal it on day one.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
The reason this petition, at first is circulated as a petition, which actually I signed. I did not realize the implication of that, but the reason that the petition came up was because the Secretary of Health and Human Services started requiring people to require these insurance plans to cover abortion pills and other things like that. And I think, I know no one's ever going to change their mind about whether they're pro-choice or pro-abortion or against abortion, but I don't think the state should be subsidizing or should be forcing people to pay for other people's abortions. So that would say I would probably have a very hard yes vote for that one.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel.
Just simply freedom, liberty, and equality. Whether that's any group versus any group. Women and men, we're 50 and 50% of us. So men need to look out for women just as well as women need to look out for men. If there's health costs that need to be paid, it shouldn't be paid solely by women for it because it's men that are doing the actions. So we need to step up and be responsible for it as well. You know, basically the thing that I want to do when I get in there is I really want to bring people together, whether that be men, women, black people, white people, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. It doesn't matter. The thing is we're people, and we need to look out for each other. We need to stop alienating each other. And as a man, I'm sitting here saying that over history we have alienated women, and I think that's absolutely wrong. This is 2014. I've grown up, you know, in a society that's basically, we're on the verge of a good change, and it's happening. So being that young person coming with that change, I hope I can lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. The next question will start with Mr. Sarah. Would you be in favor of a universal per-pupil foundation allowance for all K-12 public schools in Michigan? Let me repeat that one more time for you. Would you be in favor of a universal per-pupil foundation allowance for all K-12 public schools in Michigan? Mr. Sarah.
Well, I'm afraid the answer would have to depend on what that foundation allowance is. I'm a strong supporter of quality public education, and I'm very unhappy that this governor came in and reduced the foundation grant by some $470 and then added a little money in here and there and claims to have given money to education. We're still in a deficit situation. We have 1.6 million kids in our public schools. The population is dropping. We have more and more children in classrooms and teachers being faced with more and more challenges. We need to do something to make sure that the foundation grant is fully restored, not take money out of it for preschool, which I strongly support preschool education. It needs to be funded separately. Likewise, higher education needs to be funded, but not taking it out of the foundation grant. So I would support, as long as it was at an adequate level, a universal foundation grant. There's got to be enough to see to it that our children get the quality education they need. I'm the only candidate here who's ever served on a public school board, so I definitely know the importance of that funding, and that's what determines what our student-to-teacher ratio is.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Ms. Williams?
Well, I haven't served on a public school board, but I have been a public school student. And to answer that question specifically, I would need more information about the foundation. What I will say is that we do need to invest more money into education. We do need to provide our teachers and our students with more resources. We do need to invest in infrastructure in education. It's not just about pencils and pens. There's the aspect of buildings and facilities. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
And absolutely, to echo Kelly's statements, like I said, my mom is a third-grade teacher. She's a public school teacher. My father was on the school board. I'm a graduate of the Berkeley Public Schools. I know the value of public education, and I think the priorities in Lansing are wrong. They're backwards because they are cutting funding to our public schools. And I think all kids deserve a first-class education without question. I also think we should limit the amount of teachers to student ratio My mom has 33 students in her class, and there's no way that these students can learn as well as if they only had 22, 23 students in their class. So public education is one of my top priorities without question.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
Again, I think just as one of the other candidates said, it depends on the level of the foundation grant. I know that some school districts are allowed to add extra money in by millages and bond requests and things like that. I don't think that should be really limited. And of course, if you keep cutting the per person grant to the schools to cover the cost of educating them, that gets to be a big problem, and it has been for because lately, of course, property tax has been going down, and so there's been less money in the budget for that.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
Yeah, you look at the states around us. You got Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then you got Michigan. What were we known for? We were known for jobs, and we're known for education. We were the best in the Midwest. We have lost that. Education is falling. Jobs are gone. So what do? Well, you start with education. You start with the next generation that's coming up. I mean, I'm educated. I got a finance degree, like I said. I mean, I can talk to the children. There are children in the room. Stay in school. That has changed my life more than anything that I've done with my life, is getting educated. What we need to do is we need to get our education back in Michigan. That will bring jobs back. That will keep the people here that graduate college here in Michigan so we can use their talent. And the thing is, with education, is we don't just need to get people educated generally. We need to make sure we get everybody educated. I mean, you got the EAA and charter schools in Detroit. Mumford got redid. Denby, it's redone. And those schools have been taken by the state. We need to make sure that those kids in Detroit actually get educated, because Detroit's the heart of the state of Michigan. And Detroit is also high in poverty, low in education. I mean, we have to really make sure that this happens.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh?
Yes, thank you. I am in favor of a per pupil foundation allowance. Education is the top priority for Michigan. Without education, obviously, we're not going to be able to train our students for jobs. The problem with education right now, with our education system, is that we have charter schools siphoning off public dollars from public education. Now, that needs to stop, and it needs to stop right away. The way that we do that is we make sure that the playing field for funding is level. We make sure that charter schools do not get equal funding for facilities. As a logistics officer in the Marine Corps, I know something about that. And so when we set money aside and allow other people to set up facilities, that takes more money away from public schools. Rather, we should have all the students congregate in one area for education. And that way we're able to preserve our community sports and our communities in general, and overall educational benefit. Now, furthermore, from a job training standpoint, we ought to be allocating more money specifically to job training so that people are educated not while they're in school, but also while they're out of school, so that they can take advantage of job opportunities when they're available.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. I'd like to remind the audience that videotaping this presentation is not allowed. Thank you very much. The next question will start with Ms. Williams. The only statewide proposal on the August 5th ballot eliminates the personal property tax on businesses and replaces it with a statewide essential services fee that is 80% lower. Many small communities are heavily reliant on the personal property tax. Major state corporations have raised over $5 million to push this ballot proposal through. Michigan has already eliminated the small business tax. How would you vote on this proposal? I can repeat this if you would like.
Yes, please.
Sure.
The question part.
The question is, how would you vote on this proposal? And the proposal is the one that's on the statewide ballot on August 5th that eliminates the personal property tax on businesses and replaces it with a statewide essential services tax that ends up being 80% lower. So how would you vote on this proposal?
You know, that is not an issue that I'm familiar with, and I would probably need to do more research before I open my mouth and say yay or nay. But what I would like to talk about right now in my 1 minute is the fact that I would, the first On the top of my priority list is repealing rights to work. As a labor leader, I serve as Secretary-Treasurer for CWA Local 4004 in Detroit. And although we have not seen a significant decrease in membership across the board, I think it's important that that we protect labor and we protect workers and we protect our economy.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
Well, this is tough. There's not enough time to go over this one, but this is a really complicated issue. But there's a few things in play here. There's about $800 million that's going to be lost, and that's money that could go to our schools and our communities, and then they say that that money will come back from the use taxes. But I want to make sure, again, that the three main issues, city, schools, and seniors, are my main issues, and that money, they need to be made whole. I want to make sure that our cities aren't losing their money and our schools aren't losing their money. As far as the way it was written, unfortunately, the Republican-led legislature actually changed things. It was supposed to be written by the Elections Division of the Secretary of State, but they changed the laws so that they could write it, that the legislature could write it, and it's confusing. The wording is confusing, and I understand a lot of people are confused as to how to vote on this. But to give an answer, I would say yes. I would have to vote yes for now because I'm worried about if we don't say yes, what the Republicans will do in the lame duck session like they did with right to work and what they did with the pension tax on the seniors.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
I was wondering about that ballot question because it sort of came out of nowhere, and I know the Free Press said it was better. I know I pay personal property tax as a dentist, and then they eliminated the first $80,000, which reduces paperwork, but if they're reducing the revenue from there, and it says it's supposed to come from the use tax, well, where's the use tax going now? Because I don't know if everyone's really paying the use tax it's supposed to be, including businesses and people. So I really think it's premature to say yes, I'd vote for it. I'd probably say no, just to decide what, so you have much more information. It really isn't even on, we haven't really been informed on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
I wouldn't vote on this issue as of now because I don't know the specifics of it. But honestly, a lot of these ballot initiatives, we don't always know the specifics, and that's one thing that I want to do when I get up there is I want to actually create transparency in government. A lot of us probably remember the 25 by 25, I think it was like Prop 3 about the green energy. Well, that got voted down. That was another big miseducation piece where one side of the fence put millions of dollars into the campaign. The other side was going on the Goodwill, and Goodwill, unfortunately, didn't win that year for that ballot initiative. I do need to research this issue more, but one thing I do want to say, and I don't mean to get into party politics because I am running as a Democrat, however, I really don't necessarily agree with the two-party system completely, but I'm going to say it. It's the Republicans in Lansing are very sneaky. I am running as a Democrat, and I do hold like 95% of the Democratic values. The thing is, when I get up there, I don't want to necessarily fight with the Republicans. I actually want to make friends. Both of my parents are Republicans, and I was talking to Mr. Ryan here. He's a great guy. But the thing is they're sneaky, and they really push their agenda through in a way that I don't think is right. Right to work was pushed through, and also the minimum wage recently what's happened was pushed through, and it's so wrong. I mean, we need to wake up. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McHugh?
Sure. First off, I'd like to start by saying that this is not a complicated issue. This is actually a very simple issue. This is the reason why this is on the ballot is because there are certain oil and gas interests and coal interests that are interested in lowering their taxes. All you have to do to figure that out is to go to River Rouge, which is dependent upon 51% of their local taxes, to find out exactly who's financing it. Now that that's said, is it a good idea to repeal the personal property tax on business? Look, we need to be competitive with surrounding states. I think that we ought to have the right amount of taxes, not too high, not too low. And so it is a good idea to lower or to perhaps modify our tax system so that we don't have this. Now, that being said, you have to look at the net effect here. Local control, revenue sharing. You take away city finances, you take away a significant tax revenue source for cities, and then combined it with Prop A and the Headley Amendment, you don't allow cities to raise taxes to offset it. This is a local control issue, and I urge you to vote no on this issue until local control is restored for local municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sarah?
I hope that all the voters will vote against this proposal. It's really a form of corporate welfare, a big tax break to fat cats. Michigan is one of only 4 states in the country that gives corporate tax breaks that are not tied to producing jobs. We need to change that. We need to make the incentives so that the jobs come back. The League of Women Voters established long ago that a tax system needs to be 3 things: equitable, flexible, and relatively easy to understand and administer. The system we have now is none of those 3. To repeal the personal property tax and hope that that will somehow solve our problems is not an appropriate way to do it. What we need is we need experienced leadership in Lansing that can look at the real estate property tax, the personal property tax, the income tax, the use taxes, and the sales tax, and reform the tax system so that those who can afford to pay more do pay more, and those of us who are struggling are relieved of that burden. That's what I stand for.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. The next question will start with Mr. Wittenberg. How will you help local businesses to thrive and create employment?
One of the things that I really want to push for, there's what's called the brain drain, and you hear about young people moving outside that go to school here in Michigan, go to schools and universities in Michigan, and they go elsewhere. So we really do need to keep our students here. One of the things I talked about is giving tax breaks or tax incentives for students coming out of Michigan universities to foster entrepreneurship, to encourage them to start their businesses here in Michigan. For those of you that are familiar, there's a site called Groupon, which is an online buying system. And the 2 people that started that, and it's over $1 billion company, the 2 people that started that are from Michigan, and they both moved to Chicago and started that business in Chicago. We really need to encourage our young generation to stay here and to work here, and I think that's a good way to create more jobs in our local economy.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan.
One of the biggest costs of in businesses, especially anyone with employees, which is the important ones around here, is their health care costs. And with the complications of the Affordable Care Act, and even before that, costs were just going out of control. So I think that my proposal, which would even out the tax cost and make it very predictable and based on how many hours and how much salary you're paying an employee, that would be much more comfortable for business. And if they are already in the state, then they are more likely to grow at a steady rate rather than hitting the 50 employee maximum. And if they aren't, they'll start looking at Michigan as a place where we can control healthcare costs and be a leader for the country.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
Well, seeing as that I have an education in business, I think the best thing to promote business is education. We get people educated. That's the only way. Now, I'm telling you this because I am a young person that has been educated, and my mind is just, it changes you. You start to think just different thoughts. Your creativity excels, your discipline, your organization. If we want people to excel in business, we have to get them educated. That's how you get people to be on time. That's called discipline. That's how you get people to figure out stuff on their own. That's, initiative. I mean, this is stuff that colleges teach. I mean, our high schools, we need to get better. They're not that great, but we really need to promote people to go to secondary education to get college degrees. If we get our children educated, if more people have college degrees, I guarantee business will excel in the state and we'll get back to where we were. As I stated earlier, Michigan was really good. We had a lot of manufacturing jobs. We had a lot of businesses. Things were good. We also had education. The two, they're directly related. They're directly related. I mean, money and education, if you look at any community across the whole world, it's always the same. Education equals more economics.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh.
Yes. As the only candidate with 14 years of finance and economics experience and military experience, I am the only candidate that's uniquely qualified to address this issue. First off, tax breaks, we're already struggling on money. We're going to come up with additional money for tax breaks. We need to talk about real solutions. Real solutions involves being creative. How about we legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis? There's an idea. Marijuana and hemp. What would happen? Well, hey, blight would go away. It would at least be reduced. We'd have entrepreneurs vying for open commercial property. Property values would go up as a result of that. So that's a step in the right direction. Now, step number 2, pension capital. Pension funds are really underfunded right now. What if we mobilize pension capital to invest in entrepreneurs, homeowners, municipalities, who have ideas for improving efficiency and waste? That might generate some new business as well. And that's all private sector money. No new taxes, no new tax breaks.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sarah?
Overall quality of life will determine where businesses locate. Tax breaks are being given now. They're just being given away for free. They're not tied to job development. We need to change that. We need to say to those companies that are getting the $8 billion tax breaks that you need to create jobs in Michigan. We need to fix the roads. Everybody uses them. They need to be serviceable. We need to educate our workers. We need to have preschool education. When you're deciding where to locate your business, if one community has public preschool and another doesn't, who has the advantage? We need to work on providing jobs for people in the private sector that the private sector can't provide. You know, when I was at Taft Elementary School, they were teaching us way back then that by the time I got to be my age, I'd have to learn to cope with 70% more leisure time. That's what they called unemployment, leisure time. Well, we're there. We're at a place where we need to start to think about what we're going to give people that get college educations to make a living if the private sector economy can't do that. And I believe that's where the state needs to invest in infrastructure, roads, high tech, and clean energy.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Ms. Williams?
I think one of the things we can do is invest in transportation and infrastructure, invest in our roads, invest in public transportation, invest in mass transit. One of the problems that we have is getting people to the jobs. If we can fix that, I think that will create some. Well, there are jobs. There are jobs. We have to get people to them. We need to also invest in education, invest in trade, learning trades, and give people the things, the tools, the resources they need to get to the jobs that are there. We also need to stop rewarding companies for outsourcing jobs. That is something else that is hindering us from having the jobs that we need for people that are unemployed.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg? I'm sorry, Mr. Wittenberg already answered. Excuse me. Okay, the next question, we'll start with Mr. Ryan. Would you be in favor of raising the state sales tax in order to fund our roads? Would you be in favor of adding a sales tax to internet sales with the money delegated for roads?
Actually, both no. I think that roads are mostly used by people who use fuel. I think the gasoline tax and the diesel fuel tax should be raised with possibly some correction for those that have hybrid cars or electric cars. But I think the sales tax, if you start taking it away from using it for, if you raise the sales tax too high, purchases start to get directed to other places. I've seen some of the Republicans talk about that. Now, if you're talking about internet purchases, I think one way to get around that, because the Supreme Court limits what you can do, is to decide if we can have a tax on those that don't pay sales tax, companies that use UPS and FedEx, make them pay a fairly high tax on the shipping charges, and then we might be able to get some money from that while we're staying within the Supreme Court rulings.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this question. The answer is no, I would not raise this sales tax. What I would do to fund the roads is, and this is really a bipartisan issue as we all use the roads, but I would agree with Mr. Ryan here is I would raise the gas tax. The gas tax, if you look at it, actually hasn't been raised since the 90s. And also I would raise the diesel tax, which is lower than smaller vehicles. I would raise it to be the same level because if you think about it, those are the vehicles that are, one, are making money transporting stuff around, but for two, they are also destroying the roads more. So I think having them on an even par basis is the minimum of what we should do, but I would raise that. I would also raise the registration fees a little bit. If you look at the transportation budget, 45% is from registration fees, 45% is from the gas tax. It's $4.6 billion for transportation. We need another 1.2. So the way I would look at it, I don't want to get things complicated, get into Lansing and say I'm going to change all this stuff. That doesn't happen. We have policy in place, what I would do is just raise the levels. Just like minimum wage is supposed to be raised up to inflationary standards over the last 15, 20 years, I would do the same thing with the gas tax. I would just raise it up to the inflationary standards so that we are taxed at the adequate levels that we were back in the 90s.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh?
I would be absolutely opposed to raising either tax, especially taxes on the Internet. I'm in favor of a free and open Internet, and it needs to remain free of regulation. Now, that being said, let's talk about roads. We have a $1.2 billion annual deficit in terms of road funding. We also spend $1 billion of gas tax money on something other than roads. So perhaps we should take that $1 billion that's going somewhere else and allocate it directly to roads. And then, we can address the other issues later. But at least we know that road money is going towards roads. That's the first thing. Second thing is, again, it goes back to finding new opportunities for revenue without taxing anybody. Let's legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis. Let's do that. It's an economic opportunity here. Not only for just roads, but also for education. We can spend that money, and we can put it towards education. And finally, why don't we warranty roads? Let's require the people that produce the roads to warranty their service. Make sure that, hey, if you're going to put a product out there, that it actually works. You can learn more about this on our New Michigan Blueprint at virtualmchugh.com.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Serra?
I think that it's important to get the roads fixed. If the only plan that's available is to increase the sales tax to fix the roads, then I would vote yes. I love the idea of legalizing and taxing marijuana. In fact, it was published about a week or so ago in my column in Ferndale Friends. Then we can call them really potholes. That's where we're getting the money to fix them. The problem with using gas tax and diesel fuel to fund the roads exclusively is that we are moving more and more away from fossil fuels. And that's really a way for some of the fat cats to transfer the burden onto that independent contractor trucker that owns one truck and is trying to make a living, or to try to transfer the burden onto you, make you pay more money driving their stuff back and forth from the store because they don't want to pay more to support our roads. Everyone benefits from roads, whether they purchase gasoline or diesel fuel to put in a vehicle or not. I think we need to get real. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you I wouldn't vote in favor of raising taxes to fund something that needs to be funded. The roads need to be fixed. If marijuana is not enough to fix the potholes,
Thank you, Mr. Serra.
We need to do something else.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
I am not in favor of raising the sales tax. I think that that act would negatively affect people that are in a lower income bracket. We do not want to make things harder for people. We want to make things better for people. If you have to choose between paying your rent or your mortgage and paying your car insurance, why would we want to raise taxes on people? So I think that we need to properly appropriate the funds that we already have. That should be a discussion that's a discussion that needs to be had. Sit down, look at the money we have, and put it in the right places. And I think that's the solution to fixing our roads. And I think that we also need to use different materials. Have you driven down Greenfield lately? I drive down Greenfield every morning to go to work, and one side of Greenfield, it seems like it's a different material. So maybe we should use different materials that will last longer. It may cost us more in the short run, but in the long run, it'll cost us less.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg.
So as we've been going door to door, the number one topic without question is the roads, and everyone says fix our roads. However, a lot of people say don't increase our taxes. And the one thing, as I said earlier, the priorities in Lansing are wrong, and the Republican legislature and Governor Snyder has given over $2 billion of tax breaks to big business. And that's a lot of money that can go back to fix our roads. Like they said, it is about $1.2 billion. That's our money right there. So we don't need to raise the tax to actually fix our roads. They get the money there. That, again, like I said, that money goes back to our cities, that goes back to our schools, and that goes back to our seniors. Those are the three main issues that I'm going to keep harping on throughout the evening. And to agree with, I think someone mentioned it, long term. We can't just year after year just fix it, and then it's, you know, the next year it's an issue again. We have to have long-term solutions for this ongoing problem. And again, that money can come, that money is already there. We just need to put it there. And also, one last thing, our like the semi-trucks that drive on our roads, we have the highest weight limits in the country. And we either need to charge them a lot more, or we need to lower that weight, the weight limit.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. The next question will start with Mr. Sissel. With all of the school shootings over the last few years, do you think this is more of a guns issue or a mental health issue? Also, what do you think is the best way to make schools safe?
Yeah. Well, it's obviously a mental health issue because guns don't shoot themselves. Do I believe in gun regulation? Absolutely. I don't want to see people that have mental illnesses get guns. I don't know who would want that. I believe in the Second Amendment, absolutely. I believe in it from the foundation of why it was put into place. The thing is we need to make sure that the people that do have the free right to purchase guns are people who are going to be safe with them and responsible. I'd like to institute maybe once every year or every 2 years a reevaluation. If you have a gun, come in and get reevaluated every year or two. We want to make sure that you are in capacity to be able to have a gun. But I absolutely believe the Second Amendment is one of the most best constitutional rights that we got. And I don't want to see it being taken away. I think it's absolutely unfortunate when school shootings happen. It's one of the saddest stories you can hear. What do we do about security? Well, you beef it up a little bit. You hire security guards. You make sure that people that don't go into the schools that are adults, unless they're parents of children. And I think also if we're more of a community-based society, we can actually figure out what the problems are with these people that are doing the crimes.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh.
Sure. As a Marine, obviously, I support the right to bear arms. And that's non-negotiable. However, we need to make sure that the use of weapons is safe and responsible, that the people that have the right to purchase a weapon are properly trained. Now, in the Marine Corps, if a Marine is showing signs of mental illness, if he or she is down in the game, we immediately take his weapon, set it aside, and make sure that he doesn't have access to it or she doesn't have access to it. Now, from a mental health standpoint, this is a serious issue, and we need to make sure that the proper measures are in place so that people that don't have access, and make sure that they don't have access to getting weapons and taking them into the schools. Mental health also is very serious, and it's very near and dear to my heart. As a military officer, I have friends that are suffering from PTSD. And again, that is yet another reason where we can legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis and actually help people, as opposed to putting them on narcotics that ends up in suicide and depression.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Serra.
Well, the question is whether this is more of a gun problem or a mental health problem, and I think that the answer is that it's both a gun and a mental health issue. I, frankly, personally know people who have psychiatric diagnoses and who qualify for concealed pistol licenses. I think that that's crazy. I think that we need to have stronger safeguards so that people with those sorts of long-term problems don't have access to weapons. Even when we do that, we take the risk that this well-balanced, mentally healthy individual might get drunk or might take drugs and still use the weapons. As the only person up here who's ever been on a public school board, I'd certainly favor funding the public schools so that they can do whatever that they need to do to provide security for the children. If that means that they need metal detectors, if that means that they need additional personnel, I think that school has to be a safe environment, and that has to be a priority.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Ms. Williams?
Well, as it relates to school shootings and whether or not it's a mental health issue or a gun issue, I agree with Mr. Serra. I think that it is both. I think we need to start asking some questions. How are students getting guns? What possesses them to bring them to school and shoot people? That's a question that, I mean, it may seem like a simple question, but it's a question that should be asked. What's going on at home? And as far as making schools safer, I think we need to tighten our screening processes. I went to Cass Tech, the old Cass Tech, and there wasn't a lot of screening going into school. I think we had metal detectors, but that was about it, you know, and it was a very large building and a lot of space, a lot of places to hide things, and it was not, that was an opportunity to tighten screening processes, and I think that is something that we should look at when we want to make our schools safer.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
It's both. I agree. Over 90% of the country thinks that we need to have stricter background checks for people to purchase weapons, and yet nothing went through in Washington, D.C., unfortunately, because of the lobbyists and the deep pockets of the NRA. I think we need stricter background checks. We need more safeguards in place. We also need to ban assault weapons. And then with mental health services, money has been taken away throughout the years, and that started under Governor Engler and has continued. And we need that money, we need that funding back, without question. And as I said, my mom's a teacher, I worry about her as much as I worry about all the students, and we need to do whatever it takes to protect our children.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I think several of the people have said, I think it's mainly a mental health issue, and we do need to monitor that more. I even got an email from somebody in my neighborhood that said that I think it's their great nephew that their wife is a guardian for has had problems with the mental health system and non-responsiveness, and the person that's the patient of the mental health system has been threatening to kill himself or kill other people, and has had some physical violence. So it's mostly a mental health issue, and we really have to invest in that first. And I think we haven't had any big school shootings lately in Michigan, but they're always showing up in the news, and you always worry where the next one's going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. The next question will start with Mr. McHugh. For a district that shares a border with Detroit, what level of priority would you put on cooperating with Detroit representatives for improving the issues and challenges facing the city? In other words, how connected do you consider the well-being and success of Detroit and the well-being of our district? Excellent question,
Tara. Thank you. As Detroit goes, so goes Southeast Michigan. As Southeast Michigan goes, so goes Michigan in general. There are a couple of initiatives out there right now that are being discussed to develop economic opportunity in Michigan. One of those is the transit rail. Now, this is something that's been discussed forever, right? Now, when I ran for state representative in 2002 in Sterling Heights, I had to answer a question from the Detroit News about whether or not I supported light rail. And absolutely, I supported light rail, because it improves the mobility of labor, and it's good for business, it's good for workers, it's good for everybody. It's good for economic development. So, after August 5th, once we win this election, what's going to happen is that we're going to go shopping for other partners. We're going to work with the elected officials in Detroit. We're going to work with the elected officials or the candidates in the surrounding areas. We're going to get people to sign on to this Renew Michigan Blueprint. We're going to build a coalition, and we're going to solve these problems with common sense approach. So absolutely, as Detroit goes, so goes Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Serra?
Detroit is clearly the economic engine of our region. I'm uniquely situated to be the candidate to unify city and suburban interests. I was a judge on the 36th District Court in Detroit, the third busiest court in the country. I grew up here in Ferndale. I've lived 48 years in Ferndale. I served on the Ferndale Board of Education. I served on the Oakland County Commission. I believe it's essential that we cooperate with our friends in Detroit on regional transportation, on the water system, and on all of the issues that impact us. As a county commissioner, I was one of the few people who was able to get things passed, even though I was a member of the minority Democratic Party. As a state representative, whoever you elect will probably be a member of the minority. But I believe that I have good connections with interests in the city of Detroit and the ability to put together coalitions so that I could get things passed even if I wasn't a member of the majority party.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Ms. Williams?
Well, I was born and raised in the city of Detroit, educated in the city of Detroit. I'm happy to have called Oak Park home for almost 10 years. It is truly a family city. And I have to say that I have a vested interest in the city of Detroit. Detroit is the heart of our state, and if Detroit fails, then the entire state fails.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
we're attached at the hip with Detroit, that's for sure. As an inner-ring suburb, as I said, as Detroit goes, we go. We need to work with them. One of the things that I'm part of the Woodward Avenue Action Association, and there's the Woodward Complete Streets Project, which is something I'm a big fan of. And that would be a complete street is where you have it. It's for you can walk on it, you can drive on it, you can bike on it, and you can have public transportation that's going along the road. And that's from downtown all the way to Pontiac. And that's something I think we need without question. And along the lines of transportation, we have with Detroit, with Metro Detroit Airport, we have the largest airport in the United States that doesn't have any form of public transportation that goes from the airport to the city, the downtown, to any other areas. So we absolutely have to work together so we can benefit the whole region. Southeastern Michigan, and Detroit is a huge part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
Of course, the city of Detroit is very important, and some other ways besides public transportation being connected rather than having to stop at 8 Mile Road. And if you want to go down to the winter blast like we did on the bus, you had to switch there even in the middle of the winter. But one thing is that the city has an income tax that the state is not helping at all people collect on, or the city of Detroit collect on, and so that crimps their revenue because they're not going to get very much money from their property tax. And I have some ideas on how that can be worked around, and also because there's some people that work in the city and they work for like dental offices and they don't pay taxes because they don't want to. I pay my taxes on my earnings in Detroit. And the other thing is like quality of life issues, especially the you know, you always hear these people scrapping, and the legislature passed a very weak bill for that. I think I have some ideas on how they can develop an effective issue so that people don't have to worry about their plumbing or their air conditioning and all that being stripped out, and then the city would just go down the tubes because no one wants to live there.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
Yeah, I can't wait to get up into Lansing and work with, you know, the representatives from Detroit, the Republicans. It doesn't matter. I want to work with people. I want to work with people that are there to change policy. Detroit, I was born and raised here in Ferndale. Detroit's always been there. I think I'd be a great representative to bridge the gap from the city to the suburbs. Like I said, I was born and raised here my whole life. I know the city very well. Actually, I took the bus, you know, to U of M Dearborn, so I rode the bus for two and a half hours there. I got a lot of friends in Detroit, you know, family actually, and I've had a lot of fun in Detroit. The thing is again, I want to go back. The problem with Detroit, and again, it ties into the suburban cities, it goes back again to education. Education is absolutely the most important thing. If you look at the border cities, one of the issues is, and I can say this, you know, growing up in Ferndale, I went to Royal Oak Dondero for high school. You see a lot of people from Detroit coming into the suburbs, especially the border cities, to get educated. I understand why they're here. They want to get a good education. The problem is that the Detroit schools aren't, you know, great schools. So what we really need to do is we need to funnel our attention and our money back to education and back to inner city education. That's the key.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. We're going to ask 2 more questions. You guys hanging in there? Okay. Okay, we're going to start this one with Mr. Serra. What are your views about increasing the use of renewable energy in Michigan to match what adjacent states are doing?
I'm a former regional director for the Michigan Lung Association, so air pollution and environmental issues are important issues to me. I'm very strongly in favor of moving more rapidly toward renewable energy, including increasing our state standard, whether the renewable energy is solar or wind, or other forms of renewable energy. Moving to renewable energy creates jobs. It helps the economy. It's the kind of thing that I think our state should be supporting more strongly.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Ms. Williams?
Well, back in February, I had the opportunity to go to the Blue-Green Alliance Good Jobs, Green Jobs Conference, where I participated in a youth climate caucus. And I am a labor leader, and I was in a room with other labor leaders, people from the labor movement and people from the environmental movement. And so we learned a lot from each other. I wouldn't call myself an environmentalist. I would call myself someone who cares about the environment. The first time I recycled, I was excited. it is important that we create jobs, and renewable energy creates jobs. I am fascinated with wind power. Riding the Pennsylvania Turnpike, there is a wind farm that I always try to stop on the side of the road just so I can take a picture of it. I think we need something like that here. We need to create more of that here, onshore and offshore.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
Tara, can you please just repeat the question for me?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
What are your views about increasing the use of renewable energy in Michigan to match what adjacent states are doing?
I'm strongly in favor of that, and I think with renewable energy, solar and wind, as they talked about, and pretty simple with that, and then I'm also strongly against fracking. I don't think fracking is something we should do when there's the option of solar and wind energy. So, kind of simple answer for me.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
Of course, I'm for any development that's economically practical to increase renewables, but I don't think any mandatory effort on the state to increase that is going to help. I think it's going to kill jobs. I think the state should look into seeing if they can use loans or other types of things to where it just needs a certain push from. And as far as you know, I think natural gas and the fact that the price has gone down is a good thing. And I know fracking is what the main reason that's happened. And I was able to pay my heating bill, and also they've been using less coal around here because we have the availability of using gas-fired electric generators, and those also can be used day, night, whether it's cold or hot or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Sissel?
Well, I absolutely am the environmentalist here. I mean, after all, I'm a pot-smoking hippie, so what do you expect, right? The thing is I've worked on the Sierra Club. Hi, Nancy. I've worked on the Sierra Club Beyond Coal campaign, and my brother-in-law actually sells solar panels in California. With my business degree, I figured out how the industry is ran from the vertical integration. I want to get in there. I want to promote solar. I want to promote wind, geothermal. Actually, the Detroit River, the velocity of water that's getting pushed through that river, it's the Great Lakes draining through it. We could actually put river turbines in there and possibly power the whole city of Detroit. The thing is, you don't want someone to just talk about it. You want someone to get in there and actually do it. Like I said, I've worked on the Sierra Club Beyond Coal campaign. 25 by 25 wasn't passed, unfortunately, but when I get in there, I promise you this, I will submit 25 by 30. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait 5 more years, but 25 by 30. Michigan actually has the capabilities to produce the whole state's power from solar panels. To get it to actually happen, it's not going to take it overnight. It's not going to be 10 years. It's going to be 20, 30 years. The thing is, we need to start now. Having Republicans in office, unfortunately, doesn't help with this issue. The thing is, like, I'm young, I'm 26. I mean, this is something, as you can tell, I'm very, very, very passionate about.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh.
Sure. This is, if you go back to 2000, right, the internet bubble, right, more money flowed into green energy in 2000 than flowed into the internet bubble in the late 90s. And then George Bush got elected, and it all stopped. So, now, one lesson that we can learn is from California. California has been extremely aggressive in their renewable energy, renewable portfolio standard. And as a result, they've generated all sorts of jobs and opportunity. So we need to do the same. This is not just a race to improve energy efficiency, but this is a race to a net zero waste economy. And whoever wins that race is going to create the most jobs and opportunity, and we'll have the cleanest, greenest environment and economy. So, this is a complicated issue in terms of handling it in 1 minute. You can read a lot more about this, again, in my Learning Michigan Blueprint. I cover this in detail. This is a very big part of it.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Okay, the next question will be the final question before closing statements, and we'll start with Ms. Williams. Name the last book you've read, and what, if anything, did you learn from it? Ms. Williams.
I've been campaigning so long, I don't remember. The last book I read? The whole book?
If you just dipped in and dipped out, that's okay.
If that's okay.
Something you've learned from reading.
Okay, well, caught me off guard. Okay. How am I doing on time?
He doesn't start until you start talking.
I don't remember, but I do frequent my Bible, and I know that Jesus loves me.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Williams. Mr. Wittenberg?
Same with Kelly. It's been a while since I've had time to actually sit down and read a book. But before we started going door to door in March, I read a book called Banker to the Poor, and it's a book about microcredit and microgrants that they did in third world countries. And it's a way that with with extreme poverty, that you give them, and it's actually, it works as, you don't just give to one person, there's accountability, there's 5 people, and you give microcredit to them so that they can invest in whatever business it might be. Like some of the examples was a family or a woman who made, I don't remember specifically what the food was, but she made something, and every day she was struggling to get by, and what she said is, if I had just enough money so that I can get ahead by a couple days, then I can actually start a business, and I can make money and survive, and then so there's no longer that poverty in perpetuity. It was a really interesting book. Again, Banker to the Poor, and I highly recommend you guys reading it. Thank
you, Mr. Wittenberg. Mr. Ryan?
This winter I did read The Brothers Karamazov. I don't know how you pronounce the name because I'm sometimes not good. And one of the things I learned there, it was talking about some people have very strong views, and it's just all intellectual, and some just run on their passions of the moment. And then they had the youngest brother, Elisha, I think was his nickname. I kind of saw myself in him maybe a little bit too much, but where you start to feel what the other person is feeling, and then you can actually accomplish something through that. Although, in this book, I don't think really anything much was accomplished as far as that. It was almost a series of short stories that kind of tied in together at the end, and it seemed like it wasn't finished by the time I saw it, or by the time I finished for the book.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Cecil.
Yeah, over this very cold and bitter winter, I had a lot of time in my home, and I actually did read a book. It was called The 48 Laws of Power. It's actually a New York bestseller. It's also by the author of The Art of Seduction, which is a little bit more popular. Seeing as I'm running for state representative, obviously what's going to come with this position is power. With great power comes great responsibility. That's the thing that I want to make sure that I always remember and always have. A lot of people say, well, when you get in there, Andrew, make sure you don't get corrupt. Make sure you don't start doing this or that. That's one thing that I want to make sure. I just want to stick to it. I want to have tons of power, but I want to use it to benefit the world, to benefit society. I mean, I'm a medical marijuana patient. There's a reason I'm running for state representative. It's because I want to actually give back. I was doing fine financially. I took a risk. It kind of bit me, but now I'm recovering, and it's because I want to give back. I want to make a mission. And the next book that I've actually begun to read is The Psychology of Women. And Deborah, my campaign manager, can contest to that. She started laughing, and she's like, what is this, Andrew? But, like I was saying with the women question, women are the other side of humanity besides myself, so I want to get to know women a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. McHugh?
Killing me. He wants to get to know women a little bit better. The question was about books. Listen, I'm an avid reader. If you come to my house, the first thing you'll notice is that wall to wall, I've got books everywhere. Just because we're running a campaign doesn't give us an excuse not to read books. My Marine Corps commanding officer and other key leaders in the Marine Corps would always tell me, Joe, actually it was First Lieutenant, Lieutenant McHugh, if you don't have the time, or you think you don't have the time, you're not working hard enough, fast enough, or smart enough. Figure it out. So, the book that I read most recently is Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Elementary School. It's a book about common sense. And this job is not that difficult. We just need to think logically. We need to think with a clear mind, use some common sense, employ some fresh ideas, and go to the people. See what you guys want. Work together and forget about the party politics. We'll bring everybody together. We'll make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sarah.
Well, likewise, I tend to read a great deal, so it's difficult to think of just one to share with you, but I guess, although it may seem odd, probably the most recent that I read is a book by a philosopher by the name of Ken Wilber called Evolutionary Spirituality. It was actually given to me by an elderly nun that some of you may know, and part of the message of the book is that the environmental problem that we face today is partly because of a misperception about our relationship with the universe around us, viewing ourselves as somehow independent and somehow separate from the planet, the trees, the animal, and the plant life around us, and our responsibility to be stewards for that. I thought that that was insightful, that it's not just profit motivation that causes environmental problems, but it's also our worldview and where we think we stand in the world and how it stands in relationship to us. So I read a lot, but that was the probably most recent.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Okay, now it's time for closing statements, and you'll get 1 minute for closing statements. We're going to start with Mr. Wittenberg and go in reverse alphabetical order. So, Mr. Wittenberg, your closing statement.
Well, big thank you to you, Tara, and to the League of Women Voters. Thank you all for coming here tonight. I think this election is less about the past and it's more about the future. Our district has a long history of electing representatives on the basis of their work ethic and their commitment to progressive values. You look back, our previous two representatives, Andy Meisner and Ellen Kogan-Lipton, neither one of them had held elected office before, but they've worked hard, and I think everyone would say they're highly respected, and they're both doing great things. That's why, as a young progressive candidate, I think you should support me on August 5th. As I said, we've been out working hard, knocked over 8,000 doors, trying to talk to the voters, because at the end of the day, it's not about what I want, it's about what the voters want. And that's why we've been talking to so many people to get a pulse of the community. No offense to Mr. Ryan over there, but this is a safe Democratic seat. It's a strong Democratic seat. It's close to 78%. So whoever wins the primary is most likely going to go on to win. And I've spoken with the leadership of the Democratic Party, and I'm an absolute team player, and I want to turn the House blue and help all other Democrats get elected here in the state of Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Wittenberg. Thank you. Mr. Ryan.
Oh. Oh, you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still on question answering. Ms. Williams.
Well, continuing the legacy of strong Democratic leadership is very important to me, and that is one of the reasons I am running for this seat. I think we need to change the dynamics of what leadership looks like in Lansing. If you take a look at the panel, I'm the only woman on the panel. And that's what most tables look like. We need to change that. We need more women running for elected office. We need more women sitting at the table. I believe that if you are not at the table, you are on the menu, and it's time for us to get off the menu. I look forward to serving you in Lansing. I remember I was thinking back earlier to a time when I wanted to go to the Air Force. And one of the things I remember in my studies of the Air Force is integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all that we do. That's what I bring to the table.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Serra.
To me, progressive isn't just a label, it's a lifestyle. It's about what you do with your wealth and your time and how you work in your community. I'm a people person. I care about people. That's why I have a license to practice social work. That's why I was a member of the Ferndale Board of Education. That's why I've done lots of public service on a pro bono or free basis. The next time you need to decide on a neurosurgeon or an obstetrician or a dentist or an oral surgeon, think about whether you want the guy who's never done it before or the guy who has experience. I submit that if we respect public service and if we really appreciate the significance of what those people in Lansing do, that we're going to want to send our most experienced, best educated person. Andy Meisner had been to Washington, D.C. Ellen Kogan-Lipton was an experienced attorney. I'm the only person running for this office with an education in the law. I'm a former judge, a former county commissioner, and a former school board member. I believe that over the years I've earned your trust, and I'd ask you to extend that trust to me again on August 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Serra. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you, Tara. And thank you for everyone else for coming out this evening, for all those that are watching at home, and also the candidates as well. Tara, I've been tracking the issues that we've talked about this evening, and one very important issue wasn't brought up, and that was marriage equality. And this is Ferndale, and that's an extremely important issue to cover. Experience is great. I completely agree. And but as a Marine, you learn very quickly you can't know everything. Your responsibility is to know where to find the answers, not to know all the answers. Now, leadership by example. Now, that's something that we don't see very often. Right? I drive a Chevy Volt. My campaign manager, Jess, thank you very much. She's a sergeant in the Marine Corps. She's an accomplished author and a Yale graduate. She also is an avid advocate for marriage equality and women's rights, and that's a big reason why she is involved in my campaign. Now, this has been a great opportunity to speak tonight, and I appreciate having a chance to get to know and to share some of my thoughts with people. And I look forward to meeting you at the door as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Mr. Sissel.
Well, first off, I want to thank the League of Women's Voters. Thank you for putting this event on. Thank you as well for being the moderator. I want to thank the other candidates. This has really been an exciting and fun race, and you guys have helped that. But most importantly, I want to thank you all. You guys are what we're here for. You all are who we're going to serve. And honestly, the more people in the building, the more fun it is for me. Joe said it right, lead by example. And I think I am doing that because the government is sure as hell trying to make me an example. If you look at my story, you're going to see that I'm standing up for you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for everybody. I'm standing up. And that was for marijuana. So that's what I did for marijuana. Think about what I'm going to do for marriage equality. I was at Pride Fest. I had a booth. It was a lot of fun. I stayed there till 2 in the morning. What am I going to do for jobs? I got a finance degree. I'm going to use that education to benefit the economy. What am I going to do for the environment? I've worked on the Sierra Club Beyond Coal campaign. I'm going to continue to do this. And last, I had fun tonight, and I want to make it fun. I want everybody to enjoy it. I want politics to be something that everybody can be a part of. I mean, I'm 26 years old. Yeah, I'm young. That's good. That's what we want. We want young people to be in politics. We got children in the room. Go to school. Continue to go to school. Last, what I want to say is I am proud to be a resident of this district. I'm proud to be born and raised here, and I hope I can be your next representative to serve you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sissel. Mr. Ryan.
A lot of you might be thinking, what is someone running as a Republican in this district when it's so strongly Democratic? Actually, what got me motivated was this health care reform. I knew it had to be done, but I just didn't think it ended up being the right way to do it. So I did send a letter. I sent it to some people at the governor's office. I don't know if they did send a reply. And then when I sent my request to Ellen Cogan-Lipton, now I know how to say her middle name. I don't know if it got lost in the mail, but I never did get a response. So anyways, I'm mainly trying to put this proposal on the table and get it in people's minds because this is very important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people in this in the district. And I think we need to improve the health care reform, reduce the costs, and make it so affordable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience and the candidates and WFRN Ferndale City TV for making this forum possible. For more information on these candidates and other candidates, check the League website for our voter guide. Our League website is www.lwvoa. Click on Voter Guide, and you will see information on candidates. When known, well, no, I do know. The broadcast times and the channels that this forum will be broadcast on, it's on WFRN, that's WOW Channel 10, Comcast Channel 17, AT&T Channel 99, and it will replay at 12 noon, 4 p.m., and 12 midnight. I'm not sure of which date it will start, but if you check the ferndalemi.gov website or call the city TV station, they should be able to let you know. It will also be broadcast or streamed on the website ferndalemi.gov. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 18. Remember to vote on August 5th. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.